Hello and welcome. We're going to do a real simple, easy, loose watercolor painting today. Super loose, all right? And I know everybody's always going for loose watercolor painting and simple, and this is going to be as simple as it's going to be. We're going to use one color. This is Payne's Gray. If you don't have Payne's Gray, you could simply use a little bit of Mars Black with a little bit of whatever blue it is that you have in it. Payne's Gray would be the easiest. I have a piece of Archer's watercolor paper taped down onto my board. And I got three brushes. I have a little #1 watercolor brush. I also have I think this is a 1.5 inch flat. And then of course I have a bigger 3 inch. All right, so that's it. I have some clean water. I guess that's not it. I got some clean water and a paper towel. All right, let's get at it. So this is going to be like a snow scene. It's going to be a very sort of moody sky across the top, and sort of the bottom 1/3. If you haven't watched my video before on composition, composition should always be split into thirds, and so we're going to have the bottom third is going to be sort of the foreground, and the top 2/3 is going to be the sky. Okay, so we're going to do this with this larger brush first, and what we're going to do is set my coffee over to the side, and we're just going to take a whole bunch of water. So this is Archer's 140-pound paper. I hope I said that. All right, we're going to get a whole bunch of water. And we're just going to cover the top 2/3, wherever you think the top 2/3 are. Get a little bit more water. So the technique we're going to be using today, the watercolor technique we're going to be using is called wet on wet. Okay, so that's my wet paper. And this is going to be my wet paint. So you can see this is just on a styrofoam plate, and I have a little drop of Payne's Gray in the middle here. I had quite a bit of water, and I'm going to put that paint that was left on there into that water. Payne's Gray has this nice blue to it. I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint here. Pick up a little bit more of the color into this, and still some more of that. Don't worry about splattering this onto the page or anything. And we're going to put that right across the top. Maybe some more even. Pick up some more. A little bit darker across the top. Okay. Pick up maybe even a little bit more. And I'm just tapping the brush across the top. Okay. I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to tip my board so that that paint is going to run down. Okay. And this is the main reason we have our paper taped on there, is so we can do this sort of thing where we tip the board and let the paint run. And we're just letting it run to wherever it is it's going to run to. You can see my water has already started to bead up across there. I hope you can see that. If you can't, what's happening is the water is running downhill to here, and then it's stopping here. And I'm going to let it run back up here a little bit. And I'm just going to keep moving it till I get it to a place where I like it. And I'm going to get this to go. So now I'm tipping it so the water's running in this direction. And I'm just going to let it sit there. We're just going to let it sit. This isn't quite wet enough, so I'm just going to touch it with my finger. Let the water run to wherever it's going to go to. And then I have a couple of, I have like this little pencil box. I just set that underneath there and let the water run to wherever it's going to go to. And then you can just simply take your paper towel and dry that up along the edge. That'll be enough water on there to carry that paint across. And you can see we're already getting some nice sort of moody movement in the movement across the page with the Payne's gray. You can see the blue is splitting out kind of nicely. I'm going to take some more of that water off there. Watercolor is about being patient, okay? So watercolor painting, if you're in a hurry or you want to get things done quickly, this probably is not your medium. Pick up a little bit more of this. And we're going to tip it back this way. We're going to let it run back this way for a second. It's starting to dry up over here a little bit. You could always take your finger and just wet that, push the water into that area. I use my finger quite a bit. So I have this blue line that sort of came across here, and that's not really what I'm going for. So I'm just going to touch that with the paper towel and take some of that blue out of there. Lean it back up on the board there, let it run back here. And you're just trying to get the paint to settle to wherever it is that you want it to be. So that's looking pretty good for me. I think that's what I'm going for there. So I'm going to pick up my Payne's gray again, and I'm going to mix this up, get a little bit more of this paint into this water. And I'm just going to make some indications of sort of where I think this is going to be very snowy, so just making some indication as to where I think the snow might have piled up at some different places. And I think that's pretty good for what it is that I'm going for across there. And you'll see how it's different variations. And all I did was take the brush and move it from the right to the left and back, and then back and back, okay? You see, it only took a couple of seconds to do that. You don't need to touch the paper too much. So the great thing about painting loosely is you touch the paper less. I'm gonna set this brush aside. It still has paint on it. I'm not gonna rinse that off. I'm just gonna set it aside for now. And I'm gonna take this brush, get some more water, and I'm gonna mix up. I'm gonna touch my Payne's gray there again. Get quite a bit of paint this time. Fairly thick, okay? Quite a bit of paint. Okay, now I'm going to make some trees here, and my trees are just with this fairly thick paint. I'm going to come across the side here, and you can decide, are these going to be, what kind of trees are these going to be? If they're pine trees, you're probably going to make them a little bit pointier like that, and pick up a little bit more paint. And I'm just touching this in the wet area, right? So this is still very wet from where we initially wet the page. And keep picking up some more pigment here. Oops, got a little chunk of pigment actually fell off right into there. Okay, nice. I like how that's turning out. And I'm just going to make a indication as to where the horizon might be. Just going to touch it a little bit like that. And then we're just going to let that go, okay? Don't touch that anymore. Just let that. You can see how that's bleeding up into there so very nicely. This is, bleeding across here beautifully. Don't touch that too much more. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this with this little bit of dark, and I'm just going to touch some of these edges, just a few of them. just like that. And I'm not going to touch that anymore now. I'm just going to leave that the way it is, okay? I'm gonna set this aside and I'm just gonna let that, just let it do its own thing for a second. Grab yourself a coffee, have a couple of drinks. Be patient. Watercolor is about being patient. Just let it go for a few minutes. All right, I need you to find something sharp. So it can be the end of a brush. However, this one isn't that sharp. It could be something as simple as a credit card. You could cut a credit card. If you've had your credit card declined, you can cut your credit card up into pieces. I need you to have something sharp. I'm gonna use this, which is just there's a paint scraper that I use all the time. Okay, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it into my water. I'm gonna have to tip my water container. I'm just gonna get the end wet. All right, not so wet that there's anything coming off of it. And then we're gonna draw some lines through the paint. This is sort of like etching into the paper, okay? That's really what this is. I'm just gonna draw some tree shapes across here. I'm gonna put a couple of more in here. Wherever you think there should be a tree shape, just, real loose indications of where there might be branch or two. And what happens when you do that is you make an indent in the paper and then the pigment falls down into that indent, okay? So you can see there's some really nice bleeding of the color going on there. I'm gonna take a #1 watercolor brush and I'm going to wet it, okay? And I'm going to take my Payne's Gray again, and I'm going to pick up some fairly thick Payne's Gray on there. And I'm just going to draw in just a few branches. Wherever it is that you think you need a branch or two, draw it in, paint it in, I should say. Now you could wait until this was quite a bit drier to do this. This is just to add some variation to your branches and to your trees. And then you can take your Payne's Gray if you want, and you could put in just a few indications of where there might be a couple of blades of grass sticking out. Remember, we're trying to keep this loose and fairly simple, easy. One color. One color, simple, effective painting, okay? You see, I only used Payne's Gray. I really hope you give this a try. It's fun, it's quick. You can do a whole bunch of them in a very few minutes. If you're currently a subscriber to my channel, I thank you very much. And if you're not currently a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks a lot for joining me today. Have an awesome painting day. See you soon.